Alright, so I'm going to kind of go over how, or the effects mechanics of this game here. So this is basically a setup of the board that you might have. Most of this is standard except for where your player pieces are. Each person has different types of player pieces in their color. And they're going to choose where they want to put those places. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 places that you can place these tokens. Why you might place them in a particular spot is just depending on what you're trying to do. The goal of the game is to get 5 of these victory tokens. The way you get 5 victory tokens is there are these little meeples around the board. If you can get a set of 4 different colors, there is red, there is, I don't have the purple one, there is purple, there is brown, and then there is also gray. And as soon as you get a set of 4, then you get to exchange it for one of those tokens. And then once you get 5 of those tokens, you win the game. And basically what you're doing is you're moving your little pieces around the board along these pathways. And when you land in a spot, what will happen is you'll draw a card from a deck of cards, and then you'll just carry out whatever action is on that card. You also are given 3 power cards that you can use once in the game. Once you use your particular power card, it is not available anymore. So basically, after you put out your pieces, you're going to determine who is the strongest player, and that's determined by who has the most people in the temple. And what happens is, if you have the most influence in the temple, you break ties. If there's ever a tie between competing places, like down here, there is orange and yellow competing for this territory. If an event was triggered, the yellow has more influence than orange, because when the game started they had more influence in the temple, and so they would get the benefit or the stronger reward than the orange person would. There are things that can happen in the game to change the influence and power of each pawn. So on your turn, you have a choice to move pawns. You don't have to move pawns, but you can. And if you do move pawns, you can move them either 1 pawn 1 space, or you can move 2 pawns 1 space each, or you can move 1 pawn 2 spaces, right? So you have 2 movement points essentially. You don't have to use any of them. You could use both for 1 pawn, or 1 for 1 pawn, 1 for another, or however you want to kind of break up those 2 movement points. And so what will happen is you'll just move your pieces if you want. So for example, yellow could say, I'm going to move down here to this place. And or he could say, instead of that, he could say, I'm going to go 1, 2, and move over to this spot over here, since he already has the majority of influence in the temple, though he is risking losing it. Oh, another thing you can do is you can earn these little wreaths that go on your head. And if you earn one of these from this spot over here, then your pawns count as 2. So if you are looking for a majority, right? If it was in this case right now, yellow has more influence than orange. However, if orange had a wreath on its head, they would be tied for influence. However, then it would go to the tiebreaker, where yellow is still stronger than orange in that situation. So anyway, we move the yellow person 2 spots there, and then what would happen is they would just draw a card. And so this card says prefect visit, advance the prefect 1 space. So the prefect is this large meeple here, and what happens is it just moves around the board in a circular direction. And when it arrives at a new city, it distributes what is in the little prefect section here. So what you have here are these 2 tokens. This token stands for any color of a meeple that you want it to be, and then obviously the gray meeple is the gray meeple. So we would see who has the most influence here. Well, we have orange has 2 influence, so they have the most influence, so they're going to get the wild token. And then we look to see who has second in most influence. So you have pink and yellow tied. Tiebreaker gives it to yellow, so this meeple would go to yellow, and they would have that. And then it'd be the next player's turn. So let's just say it was pink's turn next. I'm going in order of this, but that's not how it is. You just go in table order because this can change. So let's just say it's pink's turn. Pink can move up to 2 people. So the next, then you have to refill this. So I would take one of these things and refill it there, and then I would go into the meeple bag and, well, on this one I'd have to look. I don't know if you replace it with that specific color or if you just draw a random one. You can look that up in the book if you end up wanting to play this game. So then we have pink's turn. And so the next space the prefect might visit is here. So they're going to keep their influence there. Just went here and there's not much there. So they are going to, oh, I forgot to seed the board. The other thing you're going to do is you're going to randomly take these meeples, and you're going to put 1 meeple in each section. And if there are ever 3 meeples in a flag, not counting the one up in the prefect spot, but 3 there, you're going to trigger a distribution of meeples. So let's just pretend they all had 2 meeples in them just for the sake of demonstration. All right, so they all have 2 meeples in their territories, and so I don't know if I moved yellow's pieces, so let's say it's yellow's, or it's pink's turn. So pink is wanting to move. It has, so there's first, it's tied, so how this one would pay out is it go to orange first because they have the most, then it would go to yellow, then it would go to pink, and these meeples only get paid out to the top 2 spots. So pink's not doing too well over here. If pink moved this meeple over to this section, then they're all tied, so then the tiebreaker go most to yellow, second most to pink. So 1 movement there. They're second in place there. So let's just say they're going to move this meeple down here to gain more influence there. So they've made their 2 movements. So then you just take a card, you turn it over, and you see what it says. This one says citizen visit. So each player must draw 1 citizen from the bag and place it in a corresponding institution of their choice. So if we were to start with pink, they would randomly draw one of these from the bag. They drew one of the priests, which priests only start out here typically. So they're going to say, well, you know what? I have the most influence in this section, so I'm going to put the priest there. There are now 3 citizens. That's going to trigger a distribution. Who has the most influence in this section? Pink does. They're going to get to choose any 2 of these that they want. They'll take 2 different ones because you're trying to get different sets. And then the last one would go to whoever's in second place. Based on this, there's a tie for second place, but the tiebreaker is the temple yellow. Yellow would get this meeple. Then that was pink going in turn order. We'll say orange then draws 1. They drew a brown. Orange has most influence in this bottom section and most influence over here. So if they were going to trigger an event, which ones of these would they want? They're going to put it here to trigger an event here. Orange gets to pick 2 of these. They're going to pick the purple and the brown. And now orange has purple, brown, and the wild token, so they're 1 away from being able to get a victory point. And then the tiebreaker goes to pink, which gets that one, and so they also are now sitting on 3 different things. Then yellow gets to draw a random one. They drew gray. Yellow has most influence there, and that's it. So they're going to put it right there. Well, they actually have most influence in the temple also. They could put it there and then just take these 2 meeples from the temple, because purple is harder to get at the beginning, though then it just becomes a random draw. But there's plenty of gray out there. Well, maybe not as much anymore. Anyway, no one's there to take this, so this just gets thrown back in the bag. And so that's it. And so then it's the next player's turn. So that was pink, I believe, who started that. So orange would go next. And so for orange, they can move up to 2 people. Well, there's nothing here now. So maybe orange wants to build up influence. Well, there's not much there either. Maybe orange is going to take their 2 movements and go to the temple, because if there was a temple fight, orange and yellow are tied. This would stay in respective order, but it would cause, since pink has no influence there, it would cause pink to go down. So they're going to do 2 movements. Of course, they don't need to do 2. They could do 1 movement like that to get out of there. The prefix going in this direction. Arch is going to go there, so maybe they want to build up influence in that city, so they'll just go there. And then we turn over a card, and it says 1 power. Each player exerts the power event in one of the territories. So each territory has different powers. So what's going to happen is you can activate one of the powers in a place where you have the most influence. So right now, orange is dominating down here in this section and over here in this section. And so this says you may reveal new citizens and place them in any corresponding institution, but you must stop when a citizen event occurs. That means when there's 3 citizens in the area. So they could do that, which could be beneficial to them. Down here, this one says you may take 1 citizen from another player or take 1 citizen from any institution. So if I wanted to, as the orange player, I do have, what do I have here? I have brown. So anyway, if I just grabbed a gray, I could get a point right away. But however, since I can put citizens out and then trigger a event, maybe I can get 2 citizens. Maybe I can get the one I want plus just another one. So I would go, okay, and randomly draw one. I drew red. And so I could put this wherever I want. I'm going to put it down here because once I put 3 citizens in a place, my bag drawing ends. So then I'm going to go in here again, and I'm going to draw 1. There's a gray, and now all I need to do is just fill that up with 3 citizens. There's another gray, and then I'll grab another one, and there is brown. I would trigger a citizens event. I'm going to take, it doesn't really matter, but I'll take the 2. Well, let's see, it does matter because pink would get, I don't want pink to get gray because they'll get a point. So I'll take the 2 gray. I have 4. These 4 pieces would get churned in. Again, that's a wild, and I would get a victory point for that. And then pink, second place here, would get a brown citizen. That was me. Then yellow would look where they have majority, and so on and so forth. I'm just going to show you pinks because pink has majority over here. It says you may move all of your family members from the baths, which is this section, to the temple. And then you can, to distinguish one of your families, right? So I could take both of these people. I don't have to take any of them, but I don't have any people. I could just take one of them and just move one person over here, and then they get to be distinguished. That means they get a thing, and now they're worth 2 people in the game. And so now pink actually has the most influence in the temple, right? And so if a temple event was occurred, it could change the power. And then, so anyway, so this is basically how it moves. So you're just moving around. You're trying to get 4 unique colored meeples to turn in for victory points. You have the random draws of the cards. Again, you are given 3 specific events that you can do once in the game. So anyway, there's those special power cards. And the first person to get 5 of those tokens is the winner of the game.